Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode 66 of the Canberra Football Show. Round 20 review. It's getting very hot in the season now, Michael. We are nearing the end. Only one more round left to go of the regular season after this. First of all, how's it going? And a lot to get into today. A lot of interesting results. A lot on the line in the coming week.
Yeah, most certainly. A lot of interesting results. There was a lot that happened over the weekend for numerous teams and what it meant for sort of their, chances for finals and avoiding relegation and whatnot. So, I mean, there was plenty to play for over the weekend, and we're all you and I are gonna dissect all of that, in a moment's time. But I mean, it's such an exciting part of the season, Matt. Like you mentioned, there's one round left of the regular season before we sort of get into that finals fever stage of the sort of calendar year. So looking forward to it very much. But firstly, we'll sort of, we can't look too far ahead. We've still got one more regular season round to go before we even start to think about and talk about finals. And we don't even know which teams, are cemented in finals for each of the competitions. So a lot to play for over the next couple of weeks, and it's going to be very entertaining, and I can't wait to sort of see what the outcome will be. And we're kicking things off, Matt, with some NPL action. Our first match was West Canberra Wanderers at home. They played host to Gungahlin United, but it was just the visitors who were too good on this occasion, scoring all of their 4 goals, Matt, in the first half of play. Nomoski grabbed 2, Roberts grabbed 1, and Habdamariam grabbed 1. He scored the 4th goal for Gungahlin in what was a dominant win for them, Matt, in this contest. It was a very good first half display from Gunners, exactly what Marcel Munoz would have wanted from his team, sort of coming out and stamping their authority in the way that they did in this match. They gave West Canberra not even any sort of time to breathe or settle into the match at all. And, the scoring started with Mishko Nomoski, giving them the lead with a sort of like a beautiful sort of dinked finish over the keeper. We've seen him do that a couple of times over the years. So he certainly got that finish in his locker. And then he was able to score his second goal and his team's second 11 minutes later. Sort of just a nice sort of worked move by Gungahlin, working their way forward. They play the ball sort of to the byline. It's cut back, and Nomoski sort of made a really good run there towards the 6-yard box to tuck the ball in and make it 2-0. So obviously at that stage, it was going to be a very sort of hard ladder for, West Canberra to climb at that point in the match. And, it only got a lot harder as Roberts scored 2 minutes after Nomoski got his second. So it was 3-0 after 24 minutes of play in this one. And again, it was just a nice through ball sort of over the top of the West Canberra defense. And Roberts did really well to sort of finish that across goal with his left foot to make it 3-0. And lastly, it was Sam Habdamariam putting the finishing touches on an excellent, first half performance, like I mentioned before, Matt. A great header from Tom McLaughlin's cross. I don't think you would have expected, Sam Habdamariam of all people to pop up in the box with a header, but it was a great sort of flicked header towards the far post, and it found its way into the back of the net. So only credit to him for being able to produce a finish of that quality. And what this means for both sides as a conclusion of this result, Gunners obviously still remain in second place. They're 5 points ahead of Monaro, who are in third. And for West Canberra, even though they will be very sort of disappointed with the effort and the outcome of this match, obviously they couldn't dig themselves out of that hole that they had created for themselves in the first half. But they'll be pleased to know that they still remain above the relegation spot due to, Belconnen's loss that you'll sort of dissect in a short time. But so for West Canberra, I mean, bit of a balancing act, not a great performance on their part, especially when you consider that they're trying to really obviously get themselves as far away from the bottom of the table as possible. But on the flip side of that, results go their way this weekend and they remain above the relegation spot, 8th place, which is currently occupied by Belconnen United, sorry, like I just mentioned. So, you know, and we're going to hear it a lot sort of throughout the podcast, but there's still plenty to play for and things are going to change over the next week. And we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. But it's obviously going to come right down to the wire next weekend. It's going to be absolutely, you know, intense. I think will just be one of the words that you could use to describe the sort of mood for the games next week, especially with the West Canberras and the Belconnen Uniteds of the world. So, you know, Gungahlin will obviously be very, very pleased that they were able to put a strong first half like they did together and sort of just take their foot off the pedal in the second half and sort of, you know, just more or less just play with a sort of mellow groove, just sort of steadying their way through the contest just to sort of see the result out, which they ultimately did. And they kept a clean sheet as well in the process. So I think Marcel will be very happy with that. And I think that, you know, that they've been in second position now for a while, and, you know, that's going to do them obviously some good when it comes to finals time. So, you know, they're not going to have, you know, any team sort of overlap them, given that they've got a 5-point deficit between themselves and Monaro. So they're in a good position, and West Canberra, we'll see what happens with them next week, but they've got to bounce back fast. What do we have next up, Matt?
Yeah, and we'll discuss more about West Canberra Belco's implications a bit later, but Gungahlin getting that win also solidifies them in second place, which means that they, in a fortnight's time, they have the chance to play Canberra Croatia, and the winner of that will go automatically to the final, and the loser of that will still get another chance. And obviously, if you come third or fourth, it's sudden death. So always positive implications when you make that top two. So big win for Gungahlin in securing that there. The other match that you discussed now, Tigers with the big 2-0 victory over Belconnen United. Timotheu and Queanbeyan with the goals here. Tigers opened the scoring after Julian Borgner opened up his bag of tricks with a nice sort of flick over his marker, and then essentially, you know, kept it up in the air, touched it twice without putting it on the ground before laying it off to Timotheu, who I believe also hit it first time at the near post in the 13th minute. Timotheu laid the ball off to Josh Galewski, who put a nice dink of a ball into the path of Queanbeyan. The pacey veteran held off his marker, ran down the middle of the pitch, and released it past the keeper literally at the last moment. When he attacked, using all his experience there to double the lead for the Tigers 13 minutes into the second half. This victory for the Tigers means they successfully avoid relegation. Being in that relegation battle, there was, you know, they were only 3 points behind. If they lost, they could have been dragged into it. But heading into the final round of the season, they are completely clear of that. They're 6 points off Belco, who are in bottom. Unfortunately for Brian Grogan's side, though, they will not be able to make the finals as they are 4 points off the top four with one match remaining. So that isn't a possibility, but Tigers will still be in NPL next season. Belco, on the other hand, they had their chances in this match, but they weren't able to get themselves on the score sheet. Michael Zakowski's side were not able to pick themselves up immediately off the bottom of the ladder like the last time that they found themselves in this position a few weeks ago. That we remember, this leaves them in a very tough position, as you mentioned, Michael, to be in last place with one match remaining and 1 point off the Wanderers. It's essentially a must-win encounter for the Blue Devils as they face O'Connor. I guess the issue for Belco is they're facing an O'Connor side that need to win if they want to make the top four. So O'Connor, it's not like O'Connor won't have anything to play for as well heading into that one. And obviously Belco have it all to play for as well. Due to Belco's goal difference, though, being 9 off the Wanderers, it's unlikely that they will go above them if they draw and the Wanderers lose. So if Belco win and Wanderers win, though, Belco will still be relegated due to that point. So despite Zakowski's side needing to get their result, they will need results from the Wanderers to go their way as well. So it's all to play for in this final match of the season. Like you said, it's going to be a theme of us in the so far for the rest of the for the rest of this podcast. It's huge matchup, O'Connor versus Belco on the weekend, and also the Wanderers match as well. It's going to be absolutely huge and a lot of implications on the line.
Absolutely. Massive implications, Matt. That's definitely going to be the theme of this podcast. Next up, we have O'Connor Knights. Matt, a huge, huge win for them against Canberra, Croatia, the table toppers. You know, the Knights, you know, they came away with this huge victory in what they call sort of the Croatia derby. What's the other sort of name that they've got sort of associated with
Trevavi derby, apparently. Trevavi derby.
There you go. There you go. So whatever derby, you know, name you want to call it, you know, it's always an intense match between these two. So certainly from what we've seen so far this season, when they've come up against each other, the matches have been very intense, high intensity, and both teams have been able to play with sort of a lot of quality. And the difference in this match, Matt, was Michael Adams' goal in the second half there in the 72nd minute. You know, he confidently tucked the ball, into the far sort of top corner when he got himself one-on-one with the keeper on a bit of a slight angle, but it was just a great finish, sort of across into the top right-hand corner to give O'Connor Knights the lead in the match. And you could see just how much it meant to them with the celebrations after the goal as well. Not only just what it means, you know, against an opposition like that in a derby, but to also have in the back of your mind the scenario that's going on at the moment of, you know, trying to make finals football. And, you know, it all sort of just came together for them in that moment in time, that, you know, to be able to win a derby and to, you know, still keep your name in contention for making finals is a double win. So a huge result for O'Connor Knights. I mean, for Canberra, Croatia, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't obviously impact them that much at all, apart from just the hurt of losing sort of bragging rights in a derby. You know, this is only the second time that they've lost all season, Matt, in 20 games. And, you know, they're still top of the table, like I mentioned. So not too much to sort of dwell their heads on, especially when you got finals around the corner. And for O'Connor, you know, like I said, Matt, it keeps their finals hopes alive and intact. You know, they only are off by 2 points to fourth place Olympic. So next weekend, you know, there are going to be teams that are going to be, you know, concentrating on getting the win themselves, but also, you know, hoping that results go in their favor as well. So a lot to play for next week, especially for O'Connor, who, you know, again, going into that game against Belconnen United, they have to put absolutely everything into that. And I mean, it would be a great story for them to, you know, having just been promoted last season, to experiencing their first full season back in NPL, to reach the finals would be a huge story for them and a huge success for them. But it'll have to depend on obviously that Gungahlin Olympic result, and you just don't know what sort of Gungahlin United team you might get next week, Matt, because they've obviously cemented second place already. So even if, you know, they lose next week, it doesn't really change their stance in the table. So they might go in there resting some key personnel ahead of finals. You just never know what the mindset will be with these teams heading into that last round of the NPL. So we're just going to have to wait and see. But a huge, huge win for the O'Connor Knights in this match, in the derby. It's exactly what they would have wanted. And, you know, for Canberra, Croatia, they'll go through the motion until, you know, we reach finals football. They're still obviously top. They're the minor premiers already. So not too much for them to, you know, hang their heads low on. Except obviously, you don't want to lose a derby at any stage. It doesn't matter where you are on the table. Obviously, like, you want those bragging rights, and I think they'll obviously be disappointed that they weren't able to, you know, get the victory in this match. But for O'Connor, it's a huge win, and we'll see what happens next week. Results pending. We don't know if we'll be, you know, saying O'Connor are in the finals, or if we'll be saying that Olympic are in the finals. So the two O'Connor-based teams as well going at it for that last fourth spot in finals. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But it's going to be absolutely entertaining, nevertheless. Who have we got next up?
Next up is one of the teams you mentioned there, Canberra Olympic, 1-0 victory over Monaro Panthers over at Riverside. Olympic went down to 10 men with Nathan Magic receiving a red card. It appeared the Olympic player caught Zach McLaren with a loose elbow, straight red from the ref Nathan Shakespeare there. Monaro suffered a setback as they gave up a penalty later in that half. Nick Popovich stepped up from the spot, and it was brilliantly saved by Jordan Thurtell. The save was held up as it was deemed Thurtell stepped off his line a little bit early, so it needed to be retaken. And then Popovich stepped up again from the spot for the second time and scored. Thurtell did well to essentially nearly reach that also. He's having a great season as keeper there. So second time is a charm for Popovich in that scenario. Monaro, of course, went searching for an equaliser throughout the game. Darren Bailey having a notable chance late on. Olympic did very well to hang on, though, considering that they played with a man down for 60-odd minutes, and even two men down for 10 minutes when Daniel Lindstedt was sent to the sin bin. Monaro were not able to strike. Monaro not being able to strike back means that they miss out on the opportunity to come second, needing to settle for that elimination final spot, third v fourth in a fortnight's time. This is also Monaro's second consecutive loss after going down 1-0 also last week at home to the Wanderers the week before. Olympic now go 5 consecutive games without a loss as they remain in fourth place heading into that final round. And like you said, Michael, they are currently 2 points ahead of O'Connor Knights, their O'Connor-based rivals. So the barbecue derby, as everyone likes to call it, one of them will be heading into that fourth spot for finals. So all to play for once again in the NPL next week. Michael, what are our last round fixtures?
Yeah, so our last round fixtures for round 21 of the NPL campaign, Matt, kick things off with, the match we've already mentioned already on the show. O'Connor Knights up against Belconnen United, Saturday, September 10th, 3 p.m. at O'Connor enclosed. Monaro Panthers take on Tigers FC, Saturday, September 10th, 5:45 p.m. at Riverside. Canberra, Croatia come up against West Canberra Wanderers in a huge game for the Wanderers. I mean, to be traveling to the table toppers with your season, potentially on the line is a huge task for them. And then lastly, we have Gungahlin United up against Canberra Olympic, who, again, are looking to cement their position in the finals. So that match will take place on Sunday, September 11th, 3 p.m. at AIS Grassfield 2. So some absolute belters, Matt, for obviously the last round. And we'll see what the finals picture looks like and who's going to be relegated. We'll know those, we'll know the answers to those questions in a week's time.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our NPL section of the show. It is my great pleasure to welcome back Sam Gray. Sam, how's it going? And happy to have you back.
Yeah, not too bad, Matt. We're kicking along here, enjoying life. A bit more relaxed than normal with no football on Sunday.
Yeah, I can imagine just having a bit of a break from the outdoor game, but the indoor game, I've heard from you, is still pretty good with your Wagga futsal. How do you want to plug that a bit? How's that going?
Look, we're doing really well with Wagga futsal. We seem to be growing year on year. At the moment, we're just going through with our registrations, and the numbers are growing and growing. Look, and the fact that we're never cancelled, it's on, rain, hail, 40 degrees, we just keep playing, and I think that's a bonus for everyone. They enjoy it that way. So yeah, it's good value, and we find a lot of the NPL players enjoy it during the off season as well.
That's awesome, and that's a good segue into our first match. Your old side, Wagga City Wanderers, in their first match of the weekend, going 3-1 to West Canberra Wanderers. Colwell, Whitfield, and Ginger Oliver with the goals for the West Canberra Wanderers, and the Wagga City Wanderers. Mitchell was the goal there. West Canberra got themselves back into winning ways at the expense of Wagga. It was a pretty entertaining first half as both sides traded shots on target to try and unlock the deadlock. However, it would not be until the second period of play where we would see the opening goal of the game. West Canberra took the lead through Colwell with some nice build-up play from the visitors to start that second half. Whitfield made it 2-0 just 3 minutes later, and that saw Wagga really try and turn things around to try and get themselves back in the game. They were able to enjoy a good spell of creating some chances, but all that hard work, unfortunately for them, was unable to pay off as Ginger Oliver scored the crucial third goal away from home. And what a signing Ginger Oliver has been this season for West Canberra. Wagga managed to produce a consolation goal just after a minute after conceding to make some good work on the effort that they put in towards the game. Sam, it was a bit in this one. What did you make of it?
Yeah, look, it was, I thought the first half was very entertaining, to be honest with you. When I sat down to watch it, I thought, I don't know how this is going to go, because Wanderers were really set on, we need to try and get the points here. And they went out and had they had a good few opportunities. They just couldn't convert. Second half, they concede an early goal and then the other one. And as you say, Ginger, I've worked with Ginger before at National Futsals. She's a good player, just an all-round good footballer. And her tucking that in, I think that deflated Wagga maybe for a minute or so. But Paula Mitchell, who is from Albury, who Wanderers have brought in it, I brought her in at the start of the season and she's blossomed there. She scored a fantastic goal. Like the angle, the goalkeeper, I don't even think saw it, but when you look at the product of the Wanderers play, they're still missing the cutting edge that they were missing earlier in the season. And I think until constructively they can find that cutting edge, I think it's always going to be challenging. And the Canberra teams, West Canberra came, the desire to win was there in the second half. Obviously the halftime talk has worked wonders for them because they've come out and just stepped it up a gear.
And that was an important goal. That was an important win for them, considering that they have Gungahlin hot on their heels, which is a good sort of segue into this next match, which also has not only top four implications, but maybe league title implications. Yeah. We'll find out. Well, tonight, as of this recording, so it won't be in this. Episode, but Gungahlin United 2-1 victors over Canberra Olympic. McGlashan and Wright with the goals for Gungahlin. Thornton with the goal for Canberra Olympic. Olympic opened the scoring after 13 minutes when Olivia Fogarty laid the ball off to Michaela Thornton, who proceeded to beat her marker, run straight down the center of the pitch, and hit a cracker of a shot just outside the box, leaving it relatively too quick of a shot for Kaylee Tanini to react to. Gungahlin equalised to make it 1-1. 16 minutes later, a corner was whipped in and Michelle Heyman headed it a goal. The rebound off a deflection, and then it was headed home by McGlashan, who got onto that rebound. When it looked like the game was going to be heading into stoppage time all level, in the 88th minute, Gungahlin took the lead. Michelle Heyman was just in front of halfway, and she put an absolutely terrific through ball through the Olympic midfield, which Kayla Wright ran onto and nicely placed it past the keeper to seal the win 2-1. Now, what this means for the implications on the ladder, Olympic conceding last minute, it means it may have dashed their hopes of claiming the league title. Canberra Croatia still remain 2 points ahead, but their match with Wanderers, as I mentioned just before, will be tonight. So by the time this goes out, people will know what that means. If Croatia claim victory, they will be 5 points ahead with one match to go, meaning they will have won the league title Monday night. Considering it's out of their hands now for Olympic, I'm sure they'll look to finish the season as strong as possible next week, regardless what the score is, as they need that momentum to head into that huge match with Croatia for an automatic spot in the grand final up for grabs. In terms of Gungahlin United, though, huge victory for them as it keeps their hopes of making the top four alive. They're currently in fifth place with 3 points behind West Canberra Wanderers. And the Wanderers are still to play Croatia, as I mentioned, tonight/Monday. So we will know whether next week's matches will determine the final place. Sam, there's a bit in this one.
There is a bit in it, yeah.
After you talk about the game, can you just talk a bit about Olympic and what that might mean for their league title hopes? And then Gungahlin have been absolutely on fire since Andrew.
Oh yeah, look, the difference in Gungahlin since Andrew went in there has been, it took him a couple of weeks to find his feet and set on how the style he wanted to play. But the game yesterday, I saw much more of Gungahlin than I thought we saw early in the season. Good, controlled possession, trying to create opportunities. And honestly, I thought there was only one team going to get the winner yesterday, and it was Gungahlin. Olympic, they've been fantastic all season. A huge turnaround for them, and I think they may just have hit a little wall that they're trying to get through again, and it's going to be harder for them with Michaela Thornton going overseas to play futsal, and of course Gungahlin will lose the DeMarco girls as well. So there's a bit to consider there. But on the balance of play yesterday, I thought it was pretty even. But if you take your chances, you get points, don't you? And the finish to win it, she just took one step and just placed it. And it was really good. It's good for them to do that, Gungahlin. They had a sticky start to the season, and to see them rebuild and come back, pretty similar to Wanderers here.
We mentioned the Wanderers, but it is Wagga City Wanderers who were once again in action to essentially that first match was a replay match.
It was a rescheduled match from earlier in the year when it rained.
That's it. And it makes sense, right? Because being, Wagga being a couple hours away, it makes sense to sort of play the rematch on the weekend. And they're already in Wagga on the weekend for this Belco match. So it makes sense to play back to back. Because otherwise, then as you've been in that situation, it becomes a bit sticky, doesn't it, when you're trying to reschedule a match midweek?
And the game, rescheduling a game midweek can be very challenging. And if Wagga are travelling to Canberra, it's difficult.
Yeah.
But even more so with the Canberra girls coming here.
Yeah.
They'd have to get the afternoon off work to come.
Yeah.
Our girls, the Wagga girls, some of them are coming from Albury. Some of them are coming from Forbes. So there's more travel involved. So the double header was good for the club at the weekend. I felt that Wagga had it pretty well organised, and it seemed to go pretty well for them. On Sunday, I was amazed at how well they played against Belconnen. And when it got to half-time, I was intrigued to see that they hadn't had a shot on goal. But as it moved into the second half, and they seemed to grow in confidence again. Belconnen's goals kind of, look, they were the first one early on, probably settled them, and they were able to control the game. Getting the second goal, maybe they took their foot off a little bit, because the last 20 minutes, Wanderers seemed to push forward quite a bit. It was a good game, and all up, a draw would probably have been a fair result, and it would have been a great result for Wagga to get the draw. But Belconnen and Scott's done well there. He's kept them going, and they've got the points in the bag that will help them through. Their confidence will rise from that as well.
It certainly will, and those goals were from Cochrane from Wagga City Wanderers and Matsis and the captain Backhouse with the goals for Belco. We've talked about it before. Belco pretty much solidified in that third spot with 40 points, I believe, when I saw the ladder last. Last up in terms of this week, we have Canberra United Academy 0-0 with Tuggeranong United. A bit of a duel at Hawker Football Centre. With this 0-0 draw actually only being the second goalless draw in the competition this season. When you think about that, it's a bit astonishing considering we did have a 21-round season. And if we were to look back through the last two seasons, there were probably more 0-0 draws in the previous two, considering even though they were shortened seasons, which is a bit interesting which is a bit interesting.
It's interesting the level the girls can play at now, where they are.
Yeah.
They're now starting to understand each other's game a lot more. And like Canberra United and Tuggeranong, they've kind of gone opposite ways this season. Canberra United seem to have dropped a little bit after a really good start to the season. And Tuggeranong, they seem to have grown in confidence as it's gone on. And there's been a couple of games where they've gone one goal down and kind of dropped. And then in other games, they've gone a goal down, against Croatia last week and bounced back. And honestly, Croatia would have been victims of their own success because they dominated the game, didn't put any chances away, and you could see the frustration telling on them. So fair play to Paolo and Tuggeranong. They have grown this year.
They certainly have, and this is their fourth draw of the season. Once again, we've talked, and you've mentioned it there, the growth of this side under Paulo Romero. They've finished higher than they have last season, more accumulated points, more wins. And like you mentioned there, not to mention drawing with Canberra, Croatia, which not many clubs have done this season. I think only Olympic have. So heaps to build on there for Tuggies moving forward.
4 clean sheets as well for Tuggies.
Yep.
So the bonus with when they've brought Sammy across from Wanderers.
Oh, yeah.
She's given them that last line, but the girls in front of her have done a sterling job to limit the opportunities in some games. The game they played here when Tuggeranong beat Wagga, I think it was 5-0.
The one you commented.
Yeah, it was 5-0, and Tuggeranong, it wasn't a result that was expected, I don't think. You know, I was there obviously commentating on it, and I was quite impressed with the way they played. So.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I remember one specific match I commentated on against, I think it was against Gungahlin. They lost 3-1, but to be fair to them, they probably felt like they should have came out with that.
Yeah.
Not losing by that much, or they probably felt like they did enough for a draw as well. So that was just one specific match I remember commentating on where Tuggies did really well, and that was Gungahlin, obviously a team with momentum at that point. Regarding the CUA, though, they sit in 6th place, 18 points, no chance of them making finals. But this is sort of a continuation of positive results for them after last week's win, considering before that they lost 3 or 4 on the trot or something like that, I believe. So turning around near the end of the season for them. Regarding the matches next week, we've got Belconnen United against West Canberra Wanderers, Saturday, September 10th, 3 p.m. at McKellar Park. We've got Gungahlin United against Canberra, Croatia. That should be a good one. Saturday, September 10th, 3 p.m. at Gungahlin enclosed. Canberra Olympic versus Canberra United Academy, Sunday, September 11th, 2:30 p.m. at O'Connor enclosed. And we've got Tuggeranong United against Wagga City Wanderers, Sunday, September 11th, 3 p.m. at Canberra 201. Sam, which of these matches stand out to you in this last round of matches?
I'll be honest with you. I'd like to. I think the Croatia game, you know, they're going there. They may well have the title sewn up by then. It's going to be challenging for them if they don't. Tonight's game will be really difficult for them because of results that they've had so far. They're always good to watch, aren't they? They're just good to watch. And Olympic are the same. Like, Olympics game will be good. This weekend, all the games are eminently watchable, which I think is good for the growth of the competition. And if we think about that, where we've come from over the past 4 years that I've been involved with it, I think the competition's grown exponentially and it's just continued to grow. Probably Belconnen and West Canberra will be a good game as well. So Gungahlin and Croatia, 2 good games there. And it'll be interesting to see how Wagga City Wanderers do away at Tuggeranong. I know their season has improved over the last 6 or 7 weeks. The results have become a lot closer. A very young side. Rob Tuxer's done a good job with that young side. He's nurtured them very well. It'd be interesting to see how they finish off the season, considering the last few. All the games will be good, and that can only be good for our game, to be honest with you, Matt. As we go forward, whatever happens at the end of the season, whatever decisions are taken, I think the women's game's in good hands with the coaches and the teams that are there.
They certainly are. And what do you think about that? Before we head off, last question from me. What do you think about the that top 4 battle between Gungahlin and West Canberra? What do you think it'll come down to?
Oh, I reckon Gungahlin losing the DeMarcos may be the turning point. They are 2 big players, but they'll bring. So Piper Lockley will come in, I would imagine, and start this week. Different style of player, you know. I don't know. I really think that could be the mix for them. And Olympic, with Michaela going as well, they can cover that. They've got a really good in-depth squad, whereas Gungahlin are trying to nurture the younger players as they come through. So I think that might be the difference. And it, of course, a lot will depend on tonight's result. Because if Croatia win tonight, I'm not saying that they will take the foot off, but, you know, party time. So I don't know.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, right? It'll be interesting to see how that goes. That is 7:45 Monday night, Tuesday when this comes out, just to remind people if they get a bit confused with that. Sam, thank you so much for joining me. Any last words before you head off?
Yeah, look, everyone's been really great this season. When I left Wanderers, the phone calls and the comments that were made, but I think the growth of football for females in our region can only continue the way it's gone. So let's see if we can get some more teams involved and start to grow the game again.
Now, moving on to CPL action, Matt, we kick things off with Wagga City Wanderers up against the newly promoted Tuggeranong United. But the away side, Tuggeranong, Matt, they were just too good on this occasion. 6-1 winners in this one, so a quite emphatic victory away from home. Haidu grabbed a double, Walker, Hislop, and Richards also grabbed a double for the visiting outfit, and Kadzola got on the score sheet for Wagga in this one. You know, in typical Tuggers fashion, you know, they began the match with, you know, an early flurry of, you know, scoring 2 goals in the opening 20 minutes through a Haju brace, and, you know, then 2 more to round off, you know, the half from Walker, and Hislop. You know, Walker's goal is his 19th of the campaign, Matt. We've been talking about him pretty much every week because he's always on the score sheet. So, you know, 19th goal of the CPL campaign is an amazing feat. So well done to him for just being able to find that knack of finding the back of the net. You know, Wagga got off to a better start, you know, in the second stanza. You know, they scored through Kadzola to make good on their sort of start to the second half. You know, they weren't able to hold out, you know, Tuggeranong for much longer after that, as Richards, you know, scored twice in quick succession to obviously give Tuggeranong 6 goals in this match. And that was their scoring done for the evening. You know, Tuggies, you know, they continued some good form as they, you know, head into the final series as league champions, and, you know, they're obviously promoted to NPL next season. You know, Wagga's loss, Matt, could prove to be very costly for them as they drop out of the top 4 and obviously now behind Brindis and White Eagles on goal difference. So we were talking about it off air, but there's 3 teams in there now that are on 28 points, which just goes to show how tight and competitive things are in CPL. You've got Brindis, Eagles, and Wagga all on 28 points there. So a lot to play for. Things are very, very tight between all of those teams to try and sneak their way into the top 4. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. All to play for in the last round of the CPL season next weekend. It's going to be thoroughly entertaining, to say the least. So we'll just have to wait and see until that time arises, and we'll have a look at sort of where teams finish up. Much, you know, pretty much to what I was talking about with NPL. We'll know, you know, who's going to be in the top 4 and who's going to be relegated. Obviously, the same thing applies here in terms of determining what the top 4 will look like. And with those 3 teams on 28 points, I mean, it's anyone's grab there. So obviously there's only one spot between those 3 teams. So all to play for next weekend in this one. But our next match, Matt, was a crucial win for another one of those teams that I just mentioned on 28 points.
It certainly was. It was a crucial win for the Brindis, 1-0 over Yoogali. Brindis took the lead through target man Curtis Schaefer in the 19th minute. This is Schaefer's 8th goal of the CPL campaign, and it ended up being the match-winning goal for the Brindis. It was an important goal as it sealed them a victory that keeps them in contention for that final spot in the top 4 and finals. They are tied on 28 points, like you mentioned, with Wagga and White Eagles. They are ahead of Wagga on goal difference by +9 on them. but they're behind White Eagles by 19. So safe to say, if Brindis or Wagga are to make the finals, it won't be by goal difference with one match remaining. And funnily enough, Brindis do play against Wagga this weekend, and both sides need a victory if either of them want to make the top four. However, it might not be enough if White Eagles also win. So it will need to be down to the wire on Saturday, all to play for. And of course, if all three of them draw, then White Eagles will still go ahead as well because of the goal difference. So all to play for there. Yoogali are hot off the heels of their first win in 4 matches last week, but were not able to take away the points in this trip. As mentioned before, Yoogali won't be able to go further up the table next week. So their last game of the season, they'll be looking to finish as strongly as possible, and they'll be looking to make it tough for Queanbeyan, and they'll see if they can try and take a scalp of one of the top teams in the comp, which they have made it hard for a lot of the top teams to go there this season. So that should be another interesting match over at Solar Mad Stadium in Griffith. Who do we have next? A similar, actually, the club I just talked about then.
Yeah, exactly right, Matt. We've got Queanbeyan City, who ended up getting a tight victory against Weston Molonglo, 3-2 in this encounter. It was Sellers with a double and Cole Bataldo with the goal there for Queanbeyan City, and Lemushane and Paget with the goals for the visiting side, Weston Molonglo. Sellers, like I just said, he scored a double, but his first one came in the 23rd minute, and then he doubled his tally 14 minutes later to give his side a strong start to the matchup, for their last home match of the season. So they obviously wanted to put a show on for the fans in this one. And, but in saying that, Western were not going to give in. And, they took on that 2-goal deficit, and they struck back with 2 goals, right before half time. So it looked like at one stage they were probably going to go into the sheds at 2-0 down, but they produced sort of 2 goals there in the space of, quick succession, and they found themselves going into the sheds at 2-2, which just goes to show how crazy this league is, and anything can change at any given moment. But sort of coming out of that break, Queanbeyan combated the momentum, Weston took from that half time, by coming out, and they took the lead, 1 minute into the second half. So they didn't certainly play around and dwell on what had happened at the end of the first half. The strike was through Dylan Colbertal, his first goal of the season was a crucial one, as it obviously proved to be the difference and got them the win in this game. Western, once again, they had another competitive matchup and brought themselves, up a level after being sort of 2 goals down to get themselves back into it. That I think they proved, obviously not only to us, but to a lot of people around that CPL competition, that they were able to put on some great performances near the end of the season. They've been actually really, really positive performances that they've been able to put on the pitch over the past sort of 4 weeks. So good on Weston Molonglo, especially given sort of how difficult the majority of their season has been. What this result means for both sides is, Queanbeyan, they retook second place over ANU with this victory, which you'll get into shortly, Matt, with our next breakdown. But in the meantime, Queanbeyan, they're 1 point ahead of, the university side as things stand. So second place is important, as it, places you with a chance to immediately make the final in the semi-final. And, if you lose, it gives you that second chance, like we were just talking about before, with the implications of the top 4 for NPL football. So there's a lot to play for in that regard, especially between sort of Queanbeyan and ANU as they look to battle it out for second place. But it's going to be an absolute cracker in that last round of fixtures. Matt, who have we got? That was our last match for CPL this weekend before we go into the fixtures.
Our last match was ANU against Canberra White Eagles. Always a hotly contested match, this one. ANU opened strongly as they scored in the 3rd minute of the match, as a corner was whipped in, and Rory Spears leapt highest for a neat header at the near post. Chase Dean scored his 14th goal of the season to make it 2-0. 16 minutes later, as he ran down and pressured the keeper as the keeper received the ball from a back pass, won it and placed it in the back of the net. 10 minutes later, White Eagles half the deficit when a corner was put in. ANU went to clear it with a header. However, the connection went backwards into the vicinity of Asikia, who leapt highest to push a header into the back of the net. Dejan Santrak struck the equaliser just before halftime with an absolutely outstanding bullet of a free kick that soared into the top right corner. ANU still remain undefeated in 8 games. However, their 7-match win streak is over. The draw means that they drop behind Queanbeyan into 3rd place, trailing by 1 point, meaning that even if ANU wins next week, make it into second will be out of their hands as they will need to rely on Queanbeyan either to lose or get a draw if they are able to win. White Eagles claimed a crucial point as they return to the top 4 on goal difference with 28 points. They're tied with Brindis and Wagga on points, as we mentioned. However, their goal difference, like I mentioned before, significantly better. 19 over the Brindis and 28 over Wagga City. So, once again, safe to say if it comes down to goal difference, White Eagles more than likely have that 4th spot. However, with the Eagles taking on Tuggies and Brindis the Brindis take on Wagga, who knows what will happen? You couldn't write it better. It's just all to play for at the moment. All to play for this weekend. It should be an absolutely fascinating final round. And Michael, what are those matches?
Well, we kick things off with Yoogali versus Queanbeyan City, Matt. Saturday, September 10th, 1:30 p.m. at Solomad Stadium there. Next, we have Wagga City Wanderers up against Brindabella Brews. Like you said, both teams on the same amount of points there, looking to get into the top 4. So that's going to be an absolutely cracking match. Saturday, September 10th, 2:15 at Gissing Oval. Followed by Canberra White Eagles up against Tuggeranong United. Big game for White Eagles in this case. Even though they're in 4th spot on goal difference, Tuggeranong United are top of the league. And they need a result. They need a result big time in this one. And that match will take place on Saturday, September 10th, 3 p.m. at Woden Park Enclosed. And lastly, we have Weston Molonglo playing host to ANU Saturday, September 10th, 3 p.m. at Melrose Synthetic. So some absolutely cracking matches. And next episode, we'll know who's in the top 4 and we'll know, a lot more in terms of, who's going to be in the top 4 and what the matchups are going to look like. And I can't wait to sort of break it down because a lot's going to happen between now and all the games next weekend. And there's a lot riding, obviously, Matt, for a lot of different teams. And it's such a crucial part in the season that they put their best performances together in order to accomplish, finals football. And it's going to be absolutely amazing. Some great games out there. So, we always encourage people to sort of get out there and watch different games across the different leagues. If you find yourself, sitting around wanting to go watch a game of football, this is probably the weekend that you want to go and do it because there's so much riding on a lot of teams and there's a lot to play for. There's a lot at stake. And all I can say is just head out to a game. It's going to be sensational.
Yeah, and if you know anyone that isn't in these senior leagues, there's always a whole bunch of other games. I went to a under-18s Div 2 semi-final on the weekend. Eddie's v Maris, that heated rivalry. Someone from Olympic was also there scouting some players, a certain someone. Shout out to him. Look, it was interesting to see. Obviously, I went to Eddie, so it was good to go back and see that match. Maris have always been better than Eddie's in terms of football, 9 times out of 10 anyway. But Eddie's were able to get the win on that one, and my brother is the coach of that team, so it was good to get out and see.
Beautiful.
It was good to go out and see. Some of the other football. Good to see. And State League finals just wrapped up. I saw then. Next week we'll most likely have Chris Webb on the show, and he'll break down everything that happened in that State League final. I saw Ned Jeans was posting the penalty shootout for that final. So we'll he live streamed it on his phone.
Yeah.
So we'll get all into that final most likely next week with Webby on the show as he wraps up CPL. And we still don't know what that means in terms of who's going to come up or who's going to go down. We won't know. But all we know is, despite, like you said, all the teams can do is just put in their best performance to try and get the result. Except there will be heartbreak for someone, as relegation or missing out on the finals will be up for grabs per se. So one last time, it's all to play for. Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Once again, good show. Round 21 next week. That was episode 66 of the Canberra Football Show. We'll be back next week to break down all the final rounds action right before the finals. Thank you, everybody.